Hey, this is Toby. So in today's video, we continue to code our candlestick pattern EA in mql5. We will write the core logic so we can do our first backtests and get a result like this one here. Okay, let's go. Okay, so this is the third part of this little coding series. If you have not seen the first and second part, I will link them up here so you can go watch them and you are up to date, and then you can come back to this video. Okay, so let's just switch to meta editor and we can start coding. So last time we left off here where we coded already in the onTick the logic to open a buy and sell position, but for now we don't have the check for the conditions. So that's what we do next. Okay, but before we start to code anything, I just want to make sure that we don't have any mistakes here in this file. So click compile and check if you have any errors or warnings. So to check the conditions, I want to write a custom function that we can just call here in this if statement for a buy position and also here in this if statement for a sell position. And yeah, this function should be of type Boolean, so it just returns true or false. Yeah, let's go down to the custom function section here. And maybe we add this function after the check inputs function here. So here we write Boolean for the type of the function, and let's call this function check conditions. And also we want to have a parameter to specify if we want to check the conditions for a buy or for a sell trade. So we will also write Boolean here for the type and buy underscore sell. So if this parameter here is true, that means we want to check all the conditions for a buy trade. And if it's false, we want to check all the conditions for a sell trade. Okay, and here in the end, of course, we also need to return true or false because it's a Boolean function. So we want to return true here. And now we should be able to compile again without any mistakes. Okay, and now we can write the logic in this function here. Okay, so let's start with a simple comment here. We can just write check each condition. And here we will create a for loop. A simple index here set to 0 at the start. And as long as this index here is below our number conditions, we want to loop. And of course we increase the index in the end. Now we should be able to compile again. Of course, this function here checks all conditions. And what I now want to do is to create another custom function to check a specific condition, because this will be pretty handy for the panel later. So we are able to just check condition number 4 or just check condition number 1, for example. So let's write another custom function here, also of type Boolean. And we call this check 1 condition. And we will have also the Boolean parameter by sell. And we also need a index, so we can specify the condition we want to check with this function. So we can just write integer index, and this will be later our counter here from this for loop. Okay, also here, let's open up the body, and in the end we want to return true. And yeah, now we should be able to compile again with no mistakes. And now we can just call this check one condition function here in our check conditions function. Maybe we rename this to check all conditions and here check one condition. Yeah. And now we can write a simple if statement here. If our check one condition fails, we want to return false for this check all conditions function. So here, of course, we just pass the parameter by sell, but also our index, which is this variable here from this for loop. And if this fails or returns false, we also want to return false here. So now we are able to basically just call this function here to check all the conditions, but we are also able to call this function to check a specific condition. Let's compile again. And now we can write the logic here in this check one condition function. Okay, so the first thing we want to check here, let's scroll down a little bit. Okay, so let's write a comment, because the first thing we want to check is if this condition we want to check is active or not. So we can write a comment, return true if condition is not active. Because in this case, the condition is not relevant and we just want to return true. So we can write a simple if statement here. Now we can use our structure array. So condition, we use our index, and we can just write dot and select the member active. And if, yeah, it's not active, so if it's false here, we also want to return true, as I said. Okay, so in this case, if, for example, we only have condition 1 active, we will check condition 1, but for condition 2 and 3, for example, if they are not active, we just return true here. So that's it. And now the next step is to get the data to check the condition. Okay, so let's write a comment, get bar data. And to get the bar data, first of all, we need to specify a variable of mql rates type. This will be a, this is a predefined structure here. And let's call the variable rates. This is a dynamic array. And yeah, if you are interested, you can always highlight the predefined variables, and you can press F1 and you get to the mql help. So here we can see this structure here has the open, high, low, and close price. And that's of course what we need to check the conditions. Okay, and now we will use, or we will set this array as serious, so it aligns with our index of the bar. Serious, and we just pass our rates array, set it to true. And now we can use the copy rate function to get the values. So for this, we specify a variable called copied, because the copy rate function returns the number of copied elements. And then we can use this variable to check if this call was successful. So let's write copy rates. And here we need to specify the symbol, the period, and our start position will be 0, because we also want the values for the current bar. Of course, for the current bar, only the open price is really relevant, because we test on open price only mode. And yeah, the open is the same as high, low, and close at this point. But we want to be able to test for the current open price of the current bar. Now the number of bars we want to copy, of course, this depends on the number of indexes here in our enum. So we want to get 4 bars. So now we specify 4 here, and the values will be stored in our rates array. Okay, and now we just need to check if this was successful. So if this copied variable here is not equal to 4, then we want to return false. So we can just print a message for the user, failed to get bar data. Yeah, we can also print out the value here of this copied variable. So I will just cast this to string, copy it, and now we also want to return false here. Okay, so now we have the data to check the condition. Let's compile, and let's make sure that we don't have any mistakes here in the code. Okay, so the next step is to set the values depending on our mode to a variable, and later we can use these variables to compare or check if the condition is true or false. Maybe it's a little bit hard to understand, so let's just code this. So set values to A and B. So we will declare a variable called A, set it to 0, and a variable called b. We also set this to 0. And now we will use the switch operator to set the value depending on the mode of the condition. So switch, and now for the current condition, index mode A. And here we will have different options now, of course. So case, this mode here is mode open. We want to set A to the open price of the bar. And the open price, of course, we get with our rates array here. So rates, and now we need to specify the index of the bar. And we get the index again from our condition array here. So condition index index A. This is the index for the rates array. And here now we want to use the open price. And we also need to break here. Okay, this is one option. If mode A is set to open, then of course we want to save the open price of the candle into our variable A here. Okay, yeah, maybe it's a little bit confusing for some of you guys, but really try to understand what we are doing here. It's pretty straightforward. Maybe it will help if we replace this index variable here with, let's say, I, for example. So select this variable, press Ctrl F, and here you replace it with I, and make sure to select match whole word only. And now we can replace all, and we can see the condition. Now here, this is our I index for the condition, and here we have index A and B for the index enum. Okay, so let's do the next case here. But maybe before we just press compile, so we have no mistakes. So the next case would be if our mode A is mode high. And then, of course, we want to set this A variable here to the high of the bar. But here we also have to check our buy sell parameter, because the inputs we enter here are always for a buy trade. And for a sell trade, of course, we want to do exactly the opposite. Yeah, so that's why we check here this parameter. And if this is true, we can set the high price. So we can just use this one here. So right condition I index A dot I. If this parameter is false, so we want to check for a sell condition, we set this A variable here to the low price. Like this. And we also break here. So that's it for the high mode. Let's just copy and paste this here for low. Here, of course, we also check for buy sell. And this time, if we check if this is true, we set the low price. If this is false, we set the high price of the bar. Okay, and now we can copy this here for case close. And here, of course, we just need to change this open to closed. Okay, so that's it for the first 4 modes here, open, high, low, close. But also we have like the range, the body, the ratio, and the value. But now let's make sure we can compile here without any mistakes, and also check if you, because copy and paste is always pretty dangerous. It's easy and fast, but it's really easy to miss something. So just make sure you have the right values here. Open, high, low, low, high, and close here. Okay, now we can do the next case, which is, I think it's range. Yeah, range of the bar. So, of course, now we want to set the variable a to the total range of the bar. So the difference or the absolute value between high and low. And of course, because the high price is always above the low price, we can just subtract the low price from the high price. So we can just write high here and subtract the low of the bar. Dot low. And we also break. Okay. So I think that's it for the range. Let's compile again. Condition I index A high minus condition I index A low. Yeah, this will give us the total range of the bar. Oh, and we also want to get the distance here in points and not in like total price difference. So we need to divide all of this by the points predefined variable here. So this will just give us the difference or the range of the bar in points. Okay, let's compile again. And now for the next case, which is case body, I think. We want to set A, of course, to the body of the bar. It's pretty much the same here, but this time, of course, we need to get the absolute value because it can be a green bar, but it also can be a red bar. So we will use the math absolute function here. And yeah, let's just copy this here. And we change this high to open, for example, and the other one to close. So this will give us the range of the body. And here again, we want to divide this by point and break in the end. Yeah, this should give us the body stored in the variable A. Let's compile again. And let's take a look at the next case, which is, I think, ratio. So A will be set to, the ratio is basically just the body divided by the range of the bar. So we can use this math absolute function here and divide this. We do this in the next line here by the range. So we can also copy this here. So open minus close divided by high minus low. And this time we don't need to divide by points because it's a ratio, but we also need to break. And that's it for the ratio option here. Now we have one case left here, which is case value. And here we just want to set the A variable to our value we get from the inputs. So condition dot value. And in case we have a mistake here in our mode enum, we also want to write default here. So for any other case, we want to return false. Okay, so let's compile. And we can see we have no mistakes here. And now we just need to do the same for the mode B. Okay, so let's just copy this switch statement and paste it down here. So now you need to be very careful because we need to change, of course, a few variables here. And it's easy to miss something. So here we need to change this to mode B. And also, of course, here now, variable A to variable B. And also for all the other cases like this. Now we need to change the index A to index B. I will just copy this and do this for every index A here. Okay, and just to make sure that I did not miss a index A, I can put my cursor here, press Ctrl F, search for index A, and find next. So if you jump all the way up here to the next index A, you know you did not miss a index A here in this block. Okay, is there anything else we need to change? So for the open, get the open price, high, low. This is still the same. Yeah, I think that's it. Range, body, ratio, value. Yeah, we only have one value per condition. So let's compile. And now we have the specific value into our variable A and B. And now we can compare these variables to check the condition. Okay, so let's write a comment here. Maybe I will scroll down a little bit like this. Okay, so here we can just write compare values, and we will use a simple if statement where we check our buy sell parameter. We will also have a else body. Okay, so if we want to check for a buy trade, we can write another if statement here to check our comparison value of the current condition. So .comp, and if this is equal to greater and our A value is greater than our B value, we want to return true. We do the same, or we can just copy this here. If our comparison is less and our A value is less the B value, we also want to return true. Okay, so that's it for the buy check. Now we can copy this, do exactly the opposite for the sell check. So if our comparison is greater and our A value is less our B value, we also want to return true. And if it's less and our A value is greater than the B value, we also want to return true. Okay, so let's compile again to make sure we don't have a mistake here. I think this should work, but we also need to consider that if we have, for example, a condition, let's say of a specific ratio, like we are looking for a doji bar, this is the same for buy and for sell. There's no, we don't need to mirror this condition. So we need to add here in this first, in this if statement here, another condition or another option to make the default comparison. So I will use the operator or. Our buy sell is false and our condition dot mode A or mode B, doesn't really matter, is greater or equal to 4. So yeah, another bracket. Let's compile again. So if we take a look, number 4, so open is number index 0, number 1, 2, 3, 4. So if our mode A is a range, body, ratio, or value, we just want to use the normal comparison. Yeah, I think this should work. And later, of course, in the inputs check, we need to check the inputs for the conditions. So it's we are not able to compare, for example, the open price to a ratio. This just doesn't make sense. Or, for example, the high price to a specific value. Yeah, in this case, the EA should not start. But this is something we need to address in the check inputs function later. Before we can do our first tests, there are two things we need to change in the code. First one is very important here. We need to change this return true to return false, because we only want to return true with one of these if statements here. So change this to false. Let's compile again. And now, of course, we need to call our check all conditions function in our onTick function before we open a trade. So here, so for a buy position, we can add in this if statement here the condition check all conditions. And for the buy sell parameter, we of course specify true here. So we want to check for a buy trade. And we can do the same here for the sell if statement. Check all conditions. And this time the buy sell parameter has to be false. Okay, so now we can compile and we can switch to MetaTrader. Here in the strategy tester, select your expert advisor, euro/dollar, 5 minute. I just selected the last couple of years for the history, open price only, disable optimization and check the visual mode. Now for the inputs, for this simple visual test, I will just use a stop loss and take profit of 100. And now the condition 1. So we want to open a buy position when the open price of the current bar is greater than the high price of the previous bar. So that's the condition 1. And of course, exactly the opposite for the sell condition. So if the open price is below the low of the previous bar, we want to open a sell position. And the condition 2 is false, so not active. So we only have this one condition here. So let's start this simple test. And let's see if our logic is okay. Yeah, we can see we opened a sell trade here because the open price of this bar is below the lowest price of the previous bar. So that's true. And then we open a sell position. Of course, now we have a stop loss, take profit of 100. Yeah, let's wait for another trade. So I use the F12 key on my keyboard to jump one bar. So we can see this trade was a profit trade, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. We are just interested in a logic. And let's wait for next trade. Okay, yeah, so here, of course, we have a buy position because the open price of this bar is greater than the highest price of the previous bar. So that's also correct. Of course, this here is around midnight. Yeah, let's wait for another trade. Here again, a buy position because the open price is greater than the previous high of the previous bar. Yeah, this was a losing trade. Okay, but the logic is working, I think. Let's test another condition. So let's say we want to open a buy trade when we have 2 green bars. So this would be the close of the previous bar has to be greater than the open of the previous bar here. And we add condition 2. So again, the close of the bar before, so bar index 2 has to be greater than the open of bar index 2. Okay, but let's test this with a simple visual test. And let's see. So we got a lot of trades here. Yeah, so we open a buy position, for example, here, if we have 2 green bars. We open a sell position if we have 2 red bars. Here again, buy position, 2 green bars, sell position when we have 2 red bars. Here again, buy position, 2 green bars, buy position, 2 green bars, sell position, 2 red bars. So we can see also the multiple conditions do work. Okay, so let's test another condition because I want to test, for example, for a doji bar. So let's deactivate condition 2 here, set this to false. And now for condition 1, we can say, okay, the ratio of the previous bar has to be less than a specific value. So value, and we enter a value of 0.1. So in this case, we have a doji bar, and now we should take a buy and a sell position with this condition. So let's see if we got any trades here. No, we don't get any trades, even though we have a doji bar here. Yeah, something is wrong with the code. And that's why you should always test your code and every component of the code. So let's take a look here in the meta editor. What is the issue with our... Oh, okay, here for the switch case, of course, if we have the option value selected, we also need to break here. Because otherwise we would go into this default case here and would return false. So we will never open a trade. So add break here for case value, break, and also for the other switch statement, case value, break. Let's make sure we have a break statement for every case. Yeah. Okay, let's compile again and let's test this again. Same inputs. Yeah. Now we open a buy and sell position if the previous bar is a doji bar. Let's wait for another doji bar. Here, buy sell, because this trade bar here is a doji bar. So now it's working. Here again, this is also a doji bar. And also here. Yeah, so that's working fine now. And yeah, that's why testing is very important, because even I make a lot of mistakes and also very silly mistakes. Okay, so the last condition I want to check, maybe a very big bar. So we can just say, okay, the body in points of index 1 has to be greater than, I don't know, 50 points maybe. Maybe that's too big. Now let's say 50 points. Okay, in this case, we want to open a buy and we will also open a sell position. So let's see. Okay, here we can see a very big bar. Yeah, body is greater than 50 points. So we open buy and sell position. Let's wait for another. Yeah, here again, this red bar is very big. And now, for example, you can, of course, specify with the second condition that this has to be a green or red bar, or yeah. Okay, but now enough with the testing. I just want to show you one more backtest here with this EA, so you can see the potential. So if I select British pound, Canadian dollar, 1 hour time frame, last 10 years, and open price only, and for the inputs, 1000 points stop loss, 300 points take profit, and here one condition, and the condition is that the low price of the previous bar has to be greater than the high price of the bar before. And that's all for the strategy. Condition 2 is false. Let's see the result. So this is the equity graph. We will do more testing in the next video. But before we do this, we need to add the condition check here in our check inputs function. And yeah, in the next video, we will also do add the panel to the EA. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe, and also for future videos. If this video was helpful for you, would be nice if you just leave a like. And yeah, I will see you in one of the next videos. Bye bye.